the Guinan. You know what I mean? Because he's the cook, and that's where you go, and you kind of talk. And he's supposed to be the voice of reason, and like, well, what about this perspective? And I don't know.
It's almost like he's made himself that, like the character himself. Like,
that's true.
He wants to give people, his thoughts, and because people actually go to Guinan to ask her what she thinks.
That's true. The other people just come there to get something to eat, and it's unsolicited.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, well, if you want to hear my opinion, and even if you don't want to hear it, here it is.
Here it is. You're gonna hear it.
Yeah, the whole him and Kes storylines from the early seasons. Oh man, that was rough.
In the early seasons with him and Kes, I thought that there was a lot of really problematic stuff of him as supposed to be her partner, right? He's supposed to be her love interest. I thought that the way he acted and the way he treated her, there were a lot of things that were very problematic and very gaslighting about emotionally abusive relationships. And I just never liked the character after that. And towards the end, they did try to make him, as you said, Stephen, like a Guinan type character. But at that point, I don't know, I wasn't buying it as that much character growth. So
yeah, I agree.
Just not a Neelix fan. But yeah, he shows up and he's like, "What do you want the intruder alert to sound like?" And it's like he's giving him these like options and Tuvok tells him just intruder alert is fine. And he's like, "Oh yeah, go with the classic." And then he leaves, and Tuvok is like, "And you think you got problems?" Like that's just such a great Tuvok line. So dry.
He's like the Screech of this show.
Yes. Oh
like,
my
not
gosh.
like the smart part, but the obnoxious part.
That is an excellent comparison. I'm so glad you said that. That is spot on. He is the Screech.
And somehow I brought up Saved by the Bell again.
Well, it's one of those shows that comes up.
It's another problematic show.
Yeah.
Star Wars is usually what I always bring up.
So Chakotay announces they're being attacked. Tuvok tells Seven to go to deflector control and bring the new shields online. He says we'll test them in battle. We're on the bridge now, and I mean the bridge looks terrible. Like everything's falling apart. There's no lights. Everyone is like dirty. They haven't showered. I mean they are literally just hanging on by like a thread here. And it's so Tuvok makes it to the bridge and he engages a tactile display. And I thought that this was actually pretty neat, that Tuvok had lost his vision, but he was still going to work. And that the ship itself, or that the computer Starfleet thought ahead to allow the computer to offer a tactile option for if somebody couldn't see, so I thought that was actually very inclusive and a really neat thing, that the computer could offer a tactile display so he could still do his job even though he can't see anything. So I don't know, that just struck me as a really cool thing.
Yeah, I definitely applaud Starfleet for their accommodations.
Yes. I do too.
I mean, was that accommodations
the ADA would be happy.
Was it just necessary? I mean, they have very few people left. Tuvok is a very intelligent, very useful officer, and they need him to survive, so they had to adapt.
True. That's true.
Or do you think that was already built in?
I think that was built in.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, I guess it wouldn't take much, like you said, to already built into where like the interface like raises and you can feel it, and like while they're designing the ship, but like on the fly while they can barely feed themselves for them to change that to make it like a Braille interface, you're probably right. That was probably done at the factory, as they say.
Mm. I feel like Starfleet would be inclusive to that, like, because the Federation spans so many different creatures and life forms, and we know we've met creatures that like need a different air to breathe. So like, right. Starfleet allows them to, of course, still join, Starfleet, but, they have special accommodations. They have a thing that they wear that, spits the air that they can breathe right in their face. That's a terrible thing I just said. But
but we all know what you're talking about. That blue guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think
that looks a little bit like a fish.
I think they're called benzites. I don't know. I'm getting off track again. So, so they're trying to survive this another attack. Seven finally brings the new deflector online, and the temporal shields finally work. Voyager is able to repel these temporal torpedoes. So Janeway, I kind of love that she just gets on the horn, and she's like, "Oh, you noticed? We have new shielding now, so we can withstand your attacks." And now she says, we're going through their space whether they like it or not. And here we see like this over the top arrogance kind of kicking in here, but she now that she's got this temporal shielding, she is determined just to make her way, or to make the ship's way through Krenim space and get to the other side. So back on the Krenim time ship, they're at the Gariner homeworld, and they are preparing to completely erase this species because they're still trying to fix whatever they're trying to fix. They fire the weapon. This temporal wave is sent out again, and once again, it's headed right for Voyager, but this time, Voyager has temporal shields. So when the wave hits them, it changes everything around them, but Voyager remains the same. So now things are different because this Krenim ship that was attacking them, well, now it's just been reduced to a pre-warp ship. And, Janeway's like, I want to know why. All of a sudden this Krenim Imperium is gone. I want to know what happened to them. And I want to know why. So she goes to the astrometrics lab to try to figure out what happened. And meanwhile, the Krenim time ship has figured out that it's Voyager, with their temporal shields, has thrown off their calculations. And Anarax is like, let's go to Voyager. I got to figure out what's going on. So things are about to happen. Worlds are about to collide here as Anarax and Janeway are about to meet. We get a nice scene here in astrometrics, and we're at day 70 now of the Year of Hell. They're basically analyzing that section of space before and after the wave. The Imperium is like reduced to just a few planets, and Seven tracks the wave back to the Gariner homeworld. And Janeway says, yeah, we passed them like 3 weeks ago. And now that planet is uninhabited. They have been erased from history. And so Janeway's
it's almost like when you're driving on the highway, like a stretch of highway where there's not much around, and you're like, didn't we just pass this exit?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that, except
it's a bit like that. Yep, I agree.
Except for, it's more serious because they really did just pass them, and now there's no one there.
Yeah. No, and it is interesting how basically Janeway's like, this is clearly some kind of temporal time travel thing. The Krenim are the only ones who have temporal weapons. Why would they use a weapon on them that would, damage their own empire? Like, why would they do that? And so she's still trying to piece everything together. She has limited information. So So now finally we get a face-to-face meeting with Anorax and Janeway. Anorax abducts Tom and Chakotay, and he wants to analyze them further. And him and Janeway have a conversation. She's asking him, like, you know, there's like weird stuff happening here. Like, how come your Imperium doesn't exist anymore? And he's like, it's not your concern. I have a mission, keeping me from my mission. And she's like, oh, so it's you. You're the guy who's doing all this stuff. So they fire on Voyager with their weapon. They're trying to erase them from history. They've still got their temporal shielding up, though. So they, in a last-ditch effort to escape, they jump to Warp 7 because they can outrun the ship, basically. And they have to figure out a way to come back for Tom and Chakotay, but they had to escape. And so this is another life-death situation that you were talking about, Steve. How, like, there's no real win in this option, because she jumps to warp, a bunch of the ship blows up, she stays there, and they get erased from history. Like, there's nobody wins in this situation.
And you can imagine, like, with the last 4 years, like, traveling through just completely uncharted, unknown places, how many of those situations, like, really would have come up. And like I said 100 times already, it's just nice to see them in these lose-lose situations, because it is reality, and it's nice to see them, like, some true adversity that, like, actually has, like, real big stakes. So, like I said, I really wish this could have gone on for many episodes, but we got what we got, and I'm glad we got that at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, back to you saying before that it was possibly going to be like a season arc. I do like that idea, and I think that would have been... I probably would be more receptive to Chakotay's idea of everybody splitting up, because then, like you were saying, it would go, you know, here we're with Janeway's group, here with his group, you know, whoever, like that. That's kind of cool, but yeah, I definitely preferred her way for this. And like you said, she is definitely did have a bad... that's not the word I was looking for. She had a hard decision to make with all this.
And everybody would, would have loved to look forward to watching, listening to Rebecca talk about her favorite episode, which would be the Neelix episode in that thing, where Neelix was off on an adventure, and it was like the slapstick comedy episode.
Would he be in charge of like an away ship or whatever? Like,
yeah, it would just be him and probably, I don't know, who would you pair him with?
Some vegetables.
Just food.
Just him talking to his Talaxian spices.
Yeah, and it's like he just goes off to like random worlds and like tries to cook for them.
Oh my goodness! Like he could become the traveling chef, like the Adventures of Felix, the traveling chef.
Yeah, and then every single like segment ends up with them kicking him off of their planet. He has to go to the next planet.
Like, man, that guy's got some great knife skills, but he is annoying.
Dude, what did 7 of 9 say? Was it in this part 1 or part 2 when Neelix is trying to cook up some like sustenance? Would that have
part 2?
Oh, what did she say? She said, "This is offensive."
She said the taste is offensive.
This is offensive. Oh.
Which is hilarious, because when she starts eating human food or food, she's just like, she's basically telling him the way it tastes doesn't matter, and then he gets to that one, and she's just like, it's offensive. Beautiful.
Oh man. Well, we're coming to the last day of this episode, day 73. Janeway is meeting with the crew in the mess hall. So she tells them more than half the ship has been destroyed. There are decks that are uninhabitable. Life support is almost gone. And the Voyager cannot sustain